Someone is watching a fire they cannot extinguish. That is the image. That is the energetic reality of what I am reading in the full field of this situation. 3 people in a specific, charged, asymmetric configuration. Your person at the center of it. You as the direction the fire has always been pointing. And the third party on the outside of something they cannot get inside of no matter what they try, watching a flame in someone else's eyes that is not going out. That has never gone out. That is, with each passing day, burning with more clarity and more force than the day before. The fury is real, and the fury is the proof. I want to begin with the third party's fury because the fury is where this reading starts, and it is the most honest possible evidence of everything else I am about to tell you. People do not become furious about things that do not matter. Anger in the shallow surface sense does not escalate to fury. Fury requires stakes, requires the specific, personal, felt in the body quality of something that has been hoped for or worked toward or considered already secured being undermined, of something that should, by any reasonable calculation of how dynamics like this one tend to resolve, have resolved in the third party's favor by now, and it has not resolved in their favor, which is what the fury is actually about. Not what you have done, not anything specific in your behavior toward them or toward your person that would justify the specific escalating quality of what they are feeling. The fury is not about you at all in its true form. It is about them, about the specific, grinding, impossible to deny awareness that despite everything they have done and everything they have offered and all the specific, strategic, often exhausting effort of someone who has been actively working to establish themselves in a position that your person's feelings for you keep making unavailable, the position is still unavailable. You are still there in your person's interior, taking up the specific, valuable, central real estate that the third party has been trying to occupy, and they cannot get you out. Let me describe the spark, because the title names it, and it is the true heart of this reading. Your person's feeling for you is not a memory. I want to say that first and clearly, because the specific, complicated way in which people sometimes carry feelings for someone when circumstances have produced a separation between them can blur into something that is reclassified as simply the past, as something that was real and that is now held with a certain wistfulness rather than a present, active, still producing effects quality of aliveness. What your person carries for you has not been reclassified. It has not become the past. It is present, active, real in the specific, ongoing, shapes how they move through the world quality of something that is not simply remembered but continuously experienced. That surfaces not only when they deliberately think of you, but in the involuntary, uninvited moments that feelings of genuine significance tend to occupy, in the quiet, in the unguarded, in the specific, honest quality of someone who has not been able to successfully relegate you to any category that involves completed or resolved or simply historical. The spark is alive, and it is, as I said at the beginning, getting stronger. I want to speak to why it is getting stronger, because stronger is the word that deserves examination. Feelings that are getting stronger are feelings that have encountered something, not simply the passage of time, which does not reliably produce strength in feeling, but rather tends to produce the opposite, the gradual erosive quality of time, working on something that is not being renewed. Feelings that are getting stronger in the specific, measurable, the third party can see it quality of something whose intensity is increasing rather than decreasing have encountered a renewing factor. Something has been renewing the spark. For some of you, the renewing factor is simply who you are and what you have been doing in your own life during whatever period has characterized the recent chapter. Your person has been watching from whatever proximity or distance the current situation provides. And what they have been watching is someone who is not diminishing, not collapsing, not retreating into a smaller version of themselves in response to difficulty or distance or the specific complicated quality of the current situation. You are becoming more fully yourself, more settled in what you are doing and what you are building and who you are becoming. More clearly, the specific, particular, irreplaceable version of yourself that your person's spark has always been a response to. And the more you become, the stronger the spark becomes. Because the thing the spark is a response to is not diminishing, it is growing. Because the thing the spark is a response to is not diminishing, it is growing. I want to describe the specific quality of what your person has been observing in you that is producing the strengthening, because naming it will help you understand what the most powerful thing you can do is in this situation. They have been watching you choose yourself, not dramatically, not with any announcement or performance of self-possession, in the specific, daily, completely unself-conscious way of someone who is genuinely invested in their own life and their own becoming, and who is moving through the world with the quality of someone who has a center of gravity that is their own. That quality, the specific, grounded, self-possessed quality of someone who is not organized around another person's approval or another situation's resolution, is one of the most magnetic things available to a human being. It is magnetic not because it is performed, because it is not. And your person watching from whatever proximity the current situation provides has been watching the authentic version, the version that is simply what you are when you are being what you are, without the distortion that hoping for something to happen tends to produce, without the slightly off-register quality of someone who is managing how they appear in relation to a particular situation, simply what you are. And what you are observed directly and without distortion is what the spark has always been a response to. And it is becoming more of itself. I want to speak to what your person has been doing with the spark while the third party has been furious about its existence. They have been trying to manage it, not to extinguish it, to manage it. The specific ongoing requires continuous renewal quality of someone who is in a situation that does not allow the full expression of the spark and who has therefore been directing the energy of the spark somewhere else, into work, into other relationships, into the ordinary requirements of a life that continues regardless of what the interior is holding. The management has been imperfect because the spark is large enough that the management keeps leaking, keeps producing moments where something is visible that the management was supposed to be containing. Keeps showing up in how they talk about you, when they talk about you, in how they respond to references to you, in how a specific quality of aliveness appears in their expression in contexts where you are in some way present The third party sees the leaking. That is the source of the fury. Not an abstract sense that something is wrong. The specific, visible, no longer possible to deny evidence that what they have been working to occupy in your person's interior is occupied by you and has been and continues to be, regardless of what the third party does. The leaking is the evidence, and the evidence is escalating. Let me speak to what the escalation of the spark means for what comes next, because escalation in this context is not simply a description of the current state. It is a direction, a vector, something that is not only present but moving, and moving in a specific direction toward an expression that the current circumstances have been constraining. The spark is building toward something. The specific quality of accumulation that happens when a feeling that has been managed and contained and directed elsewhere keeps growing despite the management and the containment and the redirection. When the resources required to keep it from its natural expression begin to be consumed by the keeping, when the gap between what is being held and what wants to be expressed reaches a point that the management can no longer bridge, that point is approaching. Not through any action you need to take, through the natural, internal, this is what happens when something is this large for this long process of something that cannot be contained indefinitely, eventually finding its expression. The expression is building. Tell me in the comments if you can feel this. If there is a specific person in your life whose feeling for you has had this quality of persistent, alive, not diminishing presence, even across whatever circumstances have made its expression complicated, if the description of the spark matches something you have been reading in this person from whatever distance or proximity the current situation provides, tell me where you are receiving this reading from. I want to speak to something about the third party's fury that I think is the most important piece of information in this reading for your practical understanding of the situation. The fury is a tell. In the specific poker language sense of something that reveals more than the person producing it intends to reveal. That communicates information about the state of things that the person would prefer to be less legible. That is, in the very expressiveness of its expression, evidence of the exact thing it is a response to. If the spark were dying, the fury would diminish. People become less furious about things that are resolving in their favor. The specific quality of the fury and its escalating nature is the direct, faithful, completely honest reflection of the spark not only persisting but intensifying, is the real-time living evidence of someone watching something that they have invested significant effort in trying to diminish, continue to grow. The fury is calibrated to the spark. Where the spark goes, the fury goes. And the fury is growing, which means the spark is growing, which means what your person feels for you is not only alive, but is becoming more alive with each day that passes in the current arrangement, which means what your person feels for you is not only alive, but is becoming more alive with each day that passes in the current arrangement. I want to give this one more specific dimension because I think it is the most practically reassuring piece of the reading. The third party's escalating fury is not a sign that things are getting worse for you. I understand why it might feel that way from the outside. Why the visibility of someone else's claim on the situation and the intensity of their frustration might register as evidence that the situation is moving in a direction that disadvantages you. Why the presence of a third party who is actively invested in a particular outcome might feel threatening. It is not. It is, in fact, the opposite. Escalating fury is what happens when someone who expected a situation to resolve in their favor by now is watching it refuse to resolve. When the timeline they had constructed, the specific sequence of events they believed would produce the outcome they wanted, has been disrupted by the continued presence of something they did not expect to still be a factor. You are the factor. The continued, undeniable, impossible to dismiss factor of your person's feeling for you is what is disrupting the third party's expected timeline. Their escalation is the measure of your presence. The more furious they become, the more clearly present you still are. I want to speak to what you do with this information, because this reading is not simply about the state of things. It is about what the state of things means for how you navigate, hold your ground, not aggressively, not with the specific combative quality of someone who is engaged in a contest, but with the specific, settled, I know what is actually happening quality of someone who has been given a clear picture of the situation and who is navigating from that clarity rather than from the uncertainty that the incomplete picture was producing, because the incomplete picture without this reading might have suggested that things were moving in the third party's direction, that the current arrangement represented a settling rather than a temporary state, that what your person feels for you was perhaps less current and less strong than you hope. The complete picture is different. The complete picture is the one I have been giving you. The spark is alive. It is growing. The third party's fury is the evidence. And navigating from that knowledge, from the specific grounded, this is what is actually happening quality of someone who can see the full picture rather than only the visible surface of the situation, produces a very different quality of presence in the world. A settled presence, the presence of someone who is not scrambling to maintain something or to prove something or to compete with anything, who is simply being what they are, which is the most powerful thing available, because what they are is exactly what is keeping the spark alive and growing. Being what you are is the only thing that is required. The spark was never available to be won by them. I want to describe what it must feel like to be on the other side of that, not to excuse the third party's behavior or to create sympathy for someone who is engaged in something that is ultimately not in your interest, but to understand the specific quality of their frustration so that you understand why it is producing what it is producing. Imagine working hard for something and consistently not reaching it, not because your efforts are insufficient, but because the thing you are working toward is not accessible through effort, is only accessible through a specific quality of connection that either exists or it does not, and that cannot be manufactured regardless of how much effort is directed at its manufacture. That is the experience of the third party. They cannot get there not because they are not trying hard enough, because there is no effort that produces the destination they are trying to reach. The destination is a connection, your connection with your person, and connections of genuine depth are not things that can be competed for through effort in the way that external circumstances can be competed for. They either exist between two specific people or they do not. And the third party does not have one with your person in the form or at the depth that you do. That is the specific thing they cannot get past. And the fury is what the impossibility of getting past it produces. Let me speak to something about the third party directly, because they are in this reading and they deserve some direct address. Their fury is understandable. From inside their experience, what they are watching is genuinely maddening. They have done the things that one does in situations like this, have offered what they are capable of offering, have made genuine efforts in the direction of what they want. And despite those efforts, the thing standing between them and what they want is not a deficiency in their efforts. It is simply you. The specific, irreplaceable, cannot be substituted by anything they can offer quality of what exists between you and your person that has no equivalent and no alternative. That is the specific form of the losing they are experiencing. Not losing to someone who did more or offered more or was simply better in some concrete, identifiable way. Losing to a connection that is categorically different from what they can provide, that operates at a register they cannot reach because it is not accessible through effort or through the quality of their offering, because it is the product of something that only exists between two specific people and that cannot be manufactured or replicated by a third. You are not competing. There is no competition. The spark was never available to be won by them. As we close, I want to give you the image that holds the full texture of this reading. A flame burning in a specific direction, pointed, clear, unambiguous in what it is and where it is oriented, maintained not through anyone's effort, but through the simple, natural, cannot be extinguished quality of something that is genuinely alive. Around it, the efforts of someone who has been trying to diminish it, who has brought to that effort everything available to them, and who has succeeded in producing exactly one thing: their own fury, because the flame is not diminishing. The flame is, with every day that passes and every effort that fails to extinguish it, and every moment in which your person's interior affirms again that what they feel for you is what it is, getting stronger. That flame, Virgo, is for you. It has always been for you, and nothing the third party does is going to change that, because you cannot extinguish something that is not yours to extinguish. The spark belongs to the connection, and the connection belongs to the two of you.